Yeah, unless I've given you access to screen share.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay. Good evening, students. And I know that your exam is at the doorsteps, and in the month of May, you will be writing your EIS paper. So this is an attempt to discuss RTP, which is relevant for your May 2022 examination. When I say which is relevant, it does not mean that you should read only that RTP and go to examination. You're supposed to read previous RTPs as well. But previous RTP discussion has already been recorded and it is available in Indigo Learn app. So in today's class, we'll be strictly, we'll only first part, we will only strictly talk about the RTP. And maybe at the end of the today's session, I'll be talking or I'll be willing to take up any questions that you may have with relation to EIS. So if you're going to ask any questions as far as audit is concerned or any other questions as far as strategic management is concerned, I'll not be able to answer that. So only EIS question you can ask. So let's begin. So as you are aware, EIS is for 50 marks. Okay, so out of that 50 marks, 30% is, that is 15 marks, you will have MCQs, and balance 35 marks is something that you are going to have theoretical answers. So even in RTP also, there is one question that is given as far as one MCQ is concerned. So that is typically how your exam questions are going to be. So there is going to be one big case study, and on that case study, they're going to frame a couple of questions and you are supposed to answer, or you're supposed to tick which is the correct answer. And the second part is going to be the theoretical questions. You're supposed to read those questions very carefully and understand what are they asking. Most of the times what people normally tend to do mistake is they don't read the question as far as EIS is concerned and they give a wrong answer. So in this next 1 hour of discussion, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But in this 1 hour of discussion, we will carefully read all the questions and then we will discuss the answers. All right. So I'll be sharing my screen and okay. So this is the, as the heading says, this is the paper 7 EIS and SM. This is the section A EIS we are going to talk about. So first part is you are going to have a lengthy MCQs. Okay, this MCQ we will take up probably at the end because the initial 40-45 minutes I want to discuss the theoretical or the descriptive questions. First, let us understand the question clearly. Okay. So the question number 6 that says, Mr. Rajesh. Okay, I believe that you can see the screen properly. If it is very small, you can tell me and I can increase the screen size if it is small. So now, Mr. Rajesh and his team have been given the task to develop internal control policies and procedures for ABC Limited to safeguard the company's assets and to ensure the reliability of internal and external financial reporting. Elaborate the components of internal control system that Mr. Rajesh and his team must take care to make the system effective. A lengthy question. It is a very lengthy question, but the actual question I'm going to highlight here is only this much. That is, elaborate the components of internal control system. Now I know as far as the concept of internal control system is concerned, for most of us, it is little or slightly challenging to understand it. So let us try to decipher or decrypt the concept of internal control. Let's take as simple examples as possible. Let's say tomorrow, when you become a chartered accountant, you will go to one client's place and maybe you're supposed to do auditing. Now, how are you going to do your auditing? Are you going to directly say, okay, bring your all the sales invoices, bring your all the purchase bills, bring all your attendance registers of the staff, let me check each and everything? No, that is not what you're going to do. The first thing, what you're going to understand is the internal control. Now, what exactly is internal control? Let me give an example. Let's say you go to audit. There you will ask, bring your books. Okay, when you say bring your books, imagine the owner says, sir, we maintain 2 books. Now you will ask, why are you maintaining 2 books? He may say, we are maintaining 2 books. One book is for the tax authorities, for the tax people, and one is the actual books. Okay, so you may ask, why different books for tax authorities? And they will say, sir, Actually, our turnover is 5 crore rupees, but we don't want to pay tax on whole 5 crore rupees. That is where for tax authorities, we are only disclosing 1 crore as our turnover. So there is a separate book that we are preparing. Now, you know that the management's the mentality is not to be very transparent. Okay. So when they say there are two books, that means something is not correct. Okay. So that is a trigger for you to analyze. So they are talking about whenever you're going to audit or whenever you're going to go to an entity, what are the components of internal control system? I'm going to take you through the answer. Okay. Because the same answers are there in your study material as well. But let us understand each point one by one. The first component is control environment. As an auditor or as a consultant, you will understand the environment of the organization. So let us say you go to a different business, one more business, the owner comes to you or the management people come to you and they say, we are completely transparent. We have nothing to hide. So we only have one set of books that is also computerized. So everything that is entered in the system is recorded. Nobody can delete anything. So we are transparent. We are paying all the taxes. We are paying all the dues. There is nothing to hide. Fine. So when you go to audit these two different entities, one person says, I have two set of books. And one person says, I don't have two set of books. I'm very transparent. So the audit procedure is going to be entirely different. So in the first one, where there are two set of books, the environment is not proper. But in the second one, the environment is transparent. You understand the integrity level of the senior management. So whenever you go to the audit, you should not directly ask for all the bills, invoices. First, you need to understand the environment. So that is the first component of internal control. Let us read what they say. They say control environment means it is the set of standards, processes, and structures that provide the basis for carrying out internal control across the organization. So an organization may come and say that we are using only one software through which we are raising all our sale orders. The same software you are using to raise all the invoices. Same software you are using to record all the payments. Okay. So an organization has set the standard. It also has set the processes. That is how one invoice has to be raised, how salary has to be paid, how data has to be saved. Okay. And structures. Structures means they have told. Okay. So whenever one person is raising the invoice, so there is one person who raises the invoice, there is one more person who approves the invoice. So that is also very clearly laid down. Okay, so you go through all these documents, which talks about the standards within the organization, processes that goes on within the organization, structures that are laid down in the organization, which provides the basis for carrying out internal control across the organization. So that's the first step. That is the first component of internal control. Then they go on saying, the board of directors and the senior management establishes the tone at the top regarding the importance of internal control. So it is always the senior management who decides how our organization has to function. One organization says, no, we will maintain one for tax department, one for banking, one for GST, one for actual, one for auditor, or another organization which says that everything that we are maintaining is going to be transparent. So these two things are very different. Okay. Next. I'm not going to read each and every line. I'm going to just give you an idea of what each and every point means. So then once they say, okay, this is how we are actually maintaining our books. Then second step that you're going to do is you're supposed to assess the risk. Okay. So now you just think whether risk in entity A that is maintaining different books and risk in entity B that is maintaining only one set of books, where there is more risk. The risk is more in the first entity because once they say that we have two set of books, that means, different people have access to these books. So nobody knows what exactly is the true picture. Okay. So you need to assess what is the risk. Okay. Now, if I am an auditor of the entity B, which is maintaining only one books and every structure is defined, so no modification can happen, no backdate entries can happen, that time I can do the audit very easily. Okay, so you need to assess the risk. So let us read that point. It says, every entity faces a variety of risk from external and internal resources. Correct? So imagine somebody says, sir, we are maintaining two set of books, but both are in Excel. Okay. Now, whenever they say Excel, you know that Excel, though it is a good software, it is not that great software for maintaining books of accounts. So you can go and delete any columns and Excel will not stop you. But if you're using an accounting software itself, the software may have certain controls which will not allow you to delete certain entries. Okay. So whenever you say we are maintaining in Excel, that means it has a threat from your internal resources. Internal resources means your employee can make some changes that management may not get to know. So as an auditor, you need to assess what is the risk. So there is no one blanket formula that, okay, I'll learn this and I'll go to all entities and do the audit. No. For every audit, first you understand the environment. Once you understand the environment, you assess the risk. If it is an Excel, then the risk is more. If it is computerized software, the risk is comparatively lesser. So you assess the risk. Next step is going to be the control activities. Now, what is this control activities? Now, you will ask, okay, let us say that one entity that is maintaining their books in the computerized software, you will ask them, fine, tell me who is raising the invoice. Now the management may say, sir, we have employee A who is raising the invoice. Now you may ask the question, how do you know that it is only employee A who is raising the invoice? Why? How are you stopping employee B from raising the invoice? So then they may say, sir, we are using the software where all the users are having their own login. So before they raise an invoice, they should log into the system. So system will automatically detect whether it is employee A or employee B. If it is employee B, system will not allow him to pass the entry. So then you will say, okay, so there is a risk, but there is a control that is put in place. But on the other hand, if the organization have only manual bookkeeping, so they have one invoice book, so anybody can go and raise an invoice, then you will say there is high risk. So what is a control activity? Then the management may say, sir, the invoice book is kept inside one drawer and the key of that is always with the senior accountant. Okay. So you need to understand what is the control activity that has been put in the organization, because risk is everywhere. So once you understand the environment, you understand the risk, you assess the risk, and then you see what is the control activity that is put in the place. Next. The next point, next component is information and communication. Now, this is a very tricky point. What exactly is information and communication? Let us say during COVID, suddenly the offices which were functioning normally went for work from home environment. When that happened, all the data that was safeguarded in the organization, that was always in the office server, were given to employees. So the data started going out of the organization. Now, it is not for the senior management to sit and relax and say that, oh, we trust our employees. They are not going to share this data with anybody. No, the organization should constantly communicate or inform the employee saying that this is an organizational data. You are not supposed to store it in somebody, your friend's device. You are not supposed to store it in your some Google Drive or some other place. You are not supposed to share it to your friend. You can't call your cousin and say that, hey, look at my work. This is what I do in my office. No. So how would employees know? You can't assume that they already know. So you have to inform them. You have to communicate to them. And this is a constant process. Okay. Next one is the last component is something called as monitoring of control. Now, what exactly is monitoring of control? Just because you have enabled some login systems where only employees are let us say you have a system which actually tracks who is logging in. If employee A is logging in, then you are saying that only employee A can log in because only he knows his ID and password. Okay. So you are so confident about your system that employee B cannot pass the entry. But it is not so. Imagine employee A has given his password to somebody else. So even they can log in, or maybe employee A has given his password to everybody. So everybody can log in. So you can't just set up a system and leave it. You need to constantly monitor it. So you need to go through your logs to see whether there are multiple people who have logged in using A's credentials or not. So these are all the components of internal control. So there are 5 components. So how do I remember in examination? Maybe I can say I always keep a shortcut called as CRIME, CRIME. So where C stands for, no, it is not in an order. C stands for, that is a control activity. Then R stands for risk assessment. I stands for information and communication. M stands for monitoring of controls, and E stands for control environment. Again, it's in a different order, but if you logically understand it, you can write like this only. But if you don't logically understand, remember CRIME for control activities. I hope you are clear with that. All right. So let us go to question number 2. Okay, that is question number 7 in your RTP, which says information technology has touched every sector of business and has been instrumental in accelerating their growth. However, many crimes are also associated with computers. Henceforth, IT Act 2000 came into existence. Explain few computer-related offenses prescribed in IT Act 2000. Now, what are they talking about? They are simply asking, see, the question is very simple. They are talking about, this is the question, explain few computer-related offenses. What are the crimes that you can commit using computers? Okay, so the answer is also pretty simple. This is not a difficult answer. So even if you read, you can get the answer. I'm going to just discuss it. The first offense that you can do is something called as harassment via fake public profile on social networking sites. So if you're a Twitter user, you must be knowing this. So a cricketer puts something and there are like 1000 comments for that. Again, when you go and check it, this is not the real people. These are the fake profiles that the people create to stalk others and to harass others. That is the first offense. Second one is email account hacking. So if you're using a very weak email passwords, for example, let us say that you have your email ID, but the password for that is just your mobile number, or it is your name, or it is your date of birth. It is easily guessable. So there are a lot of tools which can easily guess your password. So email can be hacked and they can use it to message inappropriate messages to somebody else. There is something called as credit card fraud. This is something we read in newspaper on a daily basis. Somebody steals or your identity or your credit card data, that is 16-digit number, and then they use it to for their online purchases. Okay. The next offense is something called as web defacement. Now this is a funny offense. So what basically happens here is, let us say that I have an organization and then there is a website for the same. Now, if my competitor does not like me, what he's going to do is he's going to hack into my website and maybe he may post certain inappropriate messages there. So it actually happens 2 years back, I believe, in BJP website. Again, so BJP had their own homepage. It was hacked by somebody, and they had actually displayed certain inappropriate content on that website. And couple of days afterwards, even the Congress website was hacked. So web defacement was, web defacement is one of the computer offenses. And next offense is introducing viruses, worms, backdoors, rootkits, trojans, and bugs. So normally, how does it work is you receive an email. So they say download this attachment, or maybe you don't want to pay for a software. So you are looking for a cracked version of it or a free version of a software. So when you download it, a virus gets installed in your software. So this is also an offense that you can do with the help of computers. Next point is something called as cyber terrorism. Normally, whenever we think or watch in movies, terrorism involves people wearing all those black color masks and coming with a gun. But in reality, in cyber terrorism, they don't have to actually walk into the place. They will be somewhere else. They will make some call saying that I am so and so Don speaking, or send me hafta of 5 crore rupees, or else I'm going to shoot you or kill you. Or it may be what do I say? I can do all the activities relating to terrorism using my computers. Okay, so that is cyber terrorism. Next, this is online sale of illegal articles. Normally, when we have websites like Amazon, Flipkart, this is to sell only legal goods, or what do I say, which are not illegal. Okay? But if you're using OLX to sell, let's say, some drugs, then it is a cyber offense. Then cyber pornography, that adult content also is an offense. Phishing and email scams, that one person is portraying as somebody else. You may have received an email saying that I am somebody from Nigeria and I have 500 crore worth rupees of diamond. Please help me to siphon the money to India and all those things. So this is a email scams that happens on a daily basis. And there are other things, that is theft of confidential information. Your credit card details can be stolen. Your company's secret data can be stolen. Your data can be stolen. The last point is source code theft. Now, what is a source code? All the software has one source code. Okay. For example, the MS Office, the Microsoft Office, what we see. So they have a source code. What you get to use is only the end product, not the source code. If you steal that source code, you can come up with your own software. Instead of MS Office, you can make it as NS Office and you can start selling it to people. So every company safeguard their source code, because anybody who steals the source code can put up a same company. Okay. Let us go to the next question. And okay, I got a comment. Somebody is saying that I am not audible. Am I still audible? Okay, now I'm audible. Thank you. If you have any questions, some points that you don't understand, whether you're watching this in Zoom or whether you're watching in YouTube, you can leave in messages or in comment box. At the appropriate time, I'll be taking those questions. Okay. Next. Let us go to the next question. So 6 is done, the 7 is done. Let us quickly finish the other ones as well. So here they're talking about, unlike non-integrated systems in an organization, where all the departments work independent to each other and use their own set of data, ERP systems use single database. That is important. Like they use a single database and contains data for various software modules. The distinct feature of ERP system enables them to provide enormous benefit to an organization. Discuss these benefits. Big question, but the question is only one liner. That is, what are the benefits of ERP software? Okay. Now, see, whenever we are talking about ERP, we are talking about one big software having small modules. For example, if I have a company, I may have different departments. A simple example would be, I have an accounting department, I have a sales department, I have purchase department, I have, let us say, HR department, which processes the salary of the employees. Okay. So only 4 departments. Say accounting department, sales department, purchase department, and HR department. This is the 4 departments that I am using. Now, all the 4 departments can use their different softwares. If they're using different softwares, what is the problem? The problem is they have to enter the same data again and again. Okay. So that is where, like, think of this. If I'm having one commodity, if I purchase it, the purchase department will enter the details of all the details of that commodity. Then when the sale department is selling, they again have to enter all the details of the commodity that they're selling. For example, let us say that I have a phone. Okay. So I am selling this mobile phone. I'm in the business of purchasing and selling mobile phones. So the purchase department, when I'm purchasing this mobile phone, will enter all the data. Okay. They will have one bill. They will look into that bill and they will say, okay, this is purchase of so and so phone. This is the, what do I say? This is the memory. This is the camera. This is that. All the features of the phone they are recording. Okay. Then it is there in the purchase department software. At the same time, when the sale department sells that mobile phone, it should not happen that they get to re-enter all the data again. Once purchase department enters the data, that should automatically be available to them. So this will happen only when you don't use different softwares. You use the same software which has different features. One feature for accounting, one feature for sale department, one feature for purchase department, and one feature for HR department. Okay, so they are saying if you're using only one software, what are the benefits? Let's look into the benefits. The question number 8. Okay, here. The first benefit is information integration. Just know what we discussed. So if one department enters the data, the data is readily available with the other department. Read the point. It says the reason ERP systems are all integrated is because they possess the ability to automatically update the data between related business functions and components. Okay, so anything that the purchase department does, accounting department is updated. Anything that the purchase department does, sales department is also updated as far as what is the quantity of data that is available. Okay, so for example, one needs to only update the status of an order at one place in the order processing system, and all the other components will automatically get updated. Okay, so this is the benefit of using the ERP. Next one is reduction in lead time. Okay, so let us read the point. It says the elapsed time between placing an order and receiving it is known as the lead time. The ERP system, by virtue of their integrated nature with many modules like finance, so and so, reduces the lead time and makes it possible for the organization to have the items at the time they are required. See, simple point. Let us say there is one person who is sitting in the sales department. Okay. So one customer calls him and says, I want 100 calculators. Okay, I want 100 calculators. Now, the person in the sales team should know what is the quantity of calculator that is available. What is the quantity of the calculator that is available in the go down? Or else what will happen? He will say, sir, I'll reply you now. He'll hang up the phone. He will go talk to the inventory guy and he will ask, what is the number of calculator that is there? So, but if he opens his software and the software, it will readily tell we have 130 calculators. He can readily tell the customer saying that we have the stock. Okay, so it reduces the lead time. Next one is on-time shipping. See, normally what happens is, imagine whenever you go to Amazon to place your order, what is that you do? You go, you check whether items are available. It will either say out of stock or stock is present. If the stock is present, you will place the order, you pay the money. Now, question is, the sales department will get this data that an order has been placed. But now the stock, the inventories is never there with the sales department. There is a separate department. Okay, there is a separate department who manages the inventory. So if you are allowing a human to call the inventory person and saying that, hey, there is an order for 10 items, then this human may not do it. What do I say? Immediately. He will say, okay, now it is 7 o'clock. It is too late. I'll go home. Tomorrow I'll update. Okay. But if you are allowing a software to take care of this, then what will happen? Every time the sale is being placed, automatically the inventory person will get to know that, the order has been placed and he has to immediately pack the order and start shipping. So it will ensure that shipping is on time. Next point is reduction in cycle time. Again, so it is connected to the previous point. That is one cycle. Okay, so there are multiple type cycles. That is, one is order to cash cycle. Somebody has placed the order, and sometimes what may happen is order has been placed, commodity has been shipped, but the accounts department doesn't know that order has been actually dispatched. So they not know when to raise the invoice. If you don't raise the invoice, customer will not pay. But if you're using only one software, the software will take care of everything. As soon as the goods are being dispatched, the invoice will be automatically raised and the mail will be sent to the customer. Customer will immediately pay the money. So it reduces the time to collect the money. That is the benefit of using the ERP. Then improved resource utilization. So, for example, once everybody knows what is there in the organization, then you don't have to invest a lot on your resources. I'll give a simple example. Say, I am dealing in electronics products. So I have HP computer, I have Lenovo computer, I have Apple computer. Now, if the sales department knows what exactly is the number of each and every computers, then they can place the order accordingly. Now, if I know that today morning I had 10 HP computers and today I sold 6 of them, I only have 4 computers left. I may feel that tomorrow I may run out of stock. So the purchase department person will automatically place the order. Now he will not place the order for 100 HP computers. He will place only again for 10 because he knows that every time there is a stock reduction, he will get a reminder saying that there is not enough stock. Okay. If you don't have this system, then what they have to do? They are always scared of running out of stock. So they will overstock. They will say, okay, let us buy 100 of all the computers. Let us keep it so that we don't run out of the stock. If you do that, your capital is stuck in the warehouse. Next point is better customer satisfaction. Now, what does this mean? It's simple thing. When customer gets their goods very fast, services very fast, invoices very fast, reminders very fast, customers are happy. That's it. Next. Also, certain ERPs allows customer to log in. For example, imagine you are a chartered accountant and you are using a ERP, one software. So where you have given your clients the login. So you will tell the clients, sir, whatever the notices that you receive, you can directly log into our system and upload it. You don't have to email it. You just upload it and you can directly log in and check the status of the work. So even you are happy. Or I'll give you further more simple example. whenever you are placing an order in Amazon, you can always check where is your order. It will say it is shipped from Mumbai, it has reached Bangalore, it has reached your hub. Today it will be delivered. So how will you get to know? Because everything is integrated with the help of an ERP. Okay. So next, let us go to the next point. Next point is, again, just like customer satisfaction, even supplier performance is better. Okay, I'm going to run through all the points because we only have 1 hour. I'm just hoping that this is a revision session for you. It is not the very first time you're reading all these topics. So customers are happy. At the same time, your suppliers also are happy because you can place the, just like how order to cash cycle is taken care of, procurement to pay is also taken care of. That means once the order is reached, if you don't pay them immediately, your suppliers are not happy. But your ERP will take care of that. It will remind you. If you have purchased it for, let's say, 15 days credit period, the software will remind you saying that 15 days are getting over. Please pay that amount of money. Okay. So once you pay the amount in time, even your suppliers are happy. Next one is certain other points, but this much is enough for your examination. I'm going to discuss probably 5 or 6 under each points. In RTP, they've given 10, 15. This is also you need to remember. Just because it is there in your RTP doesn't mean that everything you have to reproduce in examination. See, is it for 4 marks, put 6 points. If it is for 6 marks, put 8 points. Okay. Next, let us go to the next question. Where is the next question? Okay. So the question number 9, that is XBRL. This is a question on XBRL. Is a freely available and global standard for digital business reporting. Discuss key features of XBRL that makes it an international standard way to communicate and exchange of business information. So they're only asking what are the key features of XBRL. This is the question. Okay, you need to always find out where the question is. So they are saying there is something called as XBRL. What are the key features? What is an XBRL? It is a standard. Okay, it is not a software. It is a standard which says how you are supposed to report, how you are supposed to report your balance sheet, how you are supposed to report your profit and loss account. Okay, just give me a moment. One moment. Okay. Now, so XBRL is not a software. XBRL is a language, or I would say it is a standard that you are supposed to follow. Okay. Now, if you are given with your free hand saying that you prepare however you want to prepare the balance sheet, then one person may call it as closing stock. Another person may call it as inventory. Another person may call it as something else, something like materials. Okay. So now when you call a same item in different names, the comparison becomes difficult. So there was a need for a unified way of presenting business data. So XBRL says some items has to be described in that way only. If they say you have to describe inventories as inventories only, you can't call it as closing stock, you can't call it as material, then users will be forced to use only one terminology for one thing. That terminology is called as taxonomy. Remember, taxonomy has got nothing to do with your income tax or GST. It is taxonomy means a terminology which is specified them, which you are supposed to use while you are defining or reporting your balance sheet or profit and loss account and other financial statements. So what are the key features? Let's go to the key features. Okay. The first key feature is there is clear definition. Now, what is this clear definition? The XBRL clearly says if it is fixed asset, this is how it should be reported. If it is inventory, this is how it should be reported. So each and everything that you can possibly imagine is already defined under those taxonomies. So you don't get to invent your own terminology and report it there. You just have to associate. Let us say in your balance sheet, you have reported as closing stock. So all that you're supposed to do is you're supposed to link it and say that in my balance sheet, I've shown it as closing stock, but I am going to link it to inventories. So whenever somebody else, let's say some foreign country, when he is seeing, if he does not understand what closing stock is, he will look at to what it is mapped to. If it is mapped to inventories, he will understand. Okay, so it has a very clear definition. Second point is there is a testable business rules. So let us say there is a software which will allow you to report or your balance sheet and profit and loss account. The software will also have something called as business rules. For example, you are a commerce student, you know that cash cannot be negative. So if you are going to select cash and put minus 30,000 rupees, software will give you a prompt saying that cash is not supposed to have a negative balance. Can you please reconfirm it? Stock is not supposed to be negative. So if you put the opening stock as negative, then it will say that, this is not supposed to be negative. Or if you say the closing stock and opening stock are different. Let us say last year's closing stock should be ideally this year's opening stock. But if your last year's closing stock is 30 lakh rupees, if the opening stock is 50 lakh rupees, the software will say the previous closing stock is not matching with your correct opening stock. Can you please recheck? So these business rules are there. It will prevent the wrong data from being reported. Okay, you can read those points. Next feature is it supports multilingual support. That means you may know English, but somebody who's sitting in France may not know English. So within a click of a button, the moment he clicks a button, it changes the language of the financial statement. So maybe what we call it as inventory is something pronounced differently. I don't know French, so it may be pronounced differently there, but the software converts it into his language. So this will help even a person who is outside the country or who knows a very different language to understand my balance sheet. Okay. Next point is very generic point. It says strong software support. So XBRL as a language gets updated on a regular basis. Maybe some assets which were not existing previously has come now. Let's say digital assets, cryptocurrencies. So if it was not defined earlier, they immediately add it in the current year. So it has a very strong support team as well. Okay. So this is as far as XBRL is concerned. Moving on. Let us go to the next question. Okay, I got a comment saying that I'm not audible again. I'm audible. Am I? Okay. So now let us go to the question number 10. It says, information system control affects the working environment of an organization and are classified based on various factors like the objectives of control, the physical and logical security of resources, etc. That is not your question at all. You can safely ignore it. So the question is this, straight away this. Describe the category of IS controls based on their objectives. So on the basis of objectives, IS controls are classified into three types. There's a preventive control, there's a detective control, and then there is a corrective control. I'm not going to explain this in detail because this has already been explained in the class. And this is fairly simple. Preventive control simply prevents something from happening. Okay. For example, if I'm giving an example of your accounting software. So the software, let us say, does not allow you to enter a journal entry of future date. Then it is called as a preventive control. Okay. Next one is, or let us say, I'll give a simple example. Let us say there is a password. Okay. There is a password which you need required to log into the system. So that is a preventive control. So if you're not an authorized user, you cannot log into the device at all. That is a preventive control. Then there is something called as detective control. It will not prevent it from happening, but if it happens, it will detect it. For example, CCTV camera. Just because you have a CCTV camera, it doesn't mean that thieves can't enter the house or the bank or the shop or the office, but it will detect. Okay, and it will report to the management saying that who was that person who entered the organization. So that is a detective control. Next one is there is something called as corrective control. Now, what is this corrective control? No matter how safe you are, okay, or maybe no matter how much you safeguarded yourself, sometimes accidents do happen. So whenever those accident happens, you need to have controls put in place which will help to correct the damage. A simple example would be first aid kit in your vehicle. You are a very careful driver. Let us say you are driving very patiently, but somebody comes and hits your vehicle. So at that time, you need to have a first aid kit. Why? Is it to prevent? No. Is it to detect? No, but to correct, or let's say reduce the damages. Or if I'm talking from an IT environment point of view, backup controls. So let us say every day you take a backup, and one day your server goes, it gets crashed. So though you had a software, it did not prevent it, did not correct or detect it, but because you had the backup, you can restore it. So that is a corrective control. Okay, let's go to the next question. That is, in an organization, the database controls are used within an application software to maintain the integrity of data and prevent any data integrity violations. Discuss various controls under database controls to achieve this objective. Again, very straightforward question. So remember, in your examination, most of the questions are going to be straightforward questions. So the question is here. Discuss the various control under database controls to achieve this objective. Now, as students, you won't be able to relate with the importance of database controls. Let me give an example. Let's say that all the client data, okay, so let us say I have an office and all my client data is there in the server. Now let us say this is a Windows computer. Now question number one is whether anybody can access this database. Answer is yes. So if they can access the database, can anybody add something to this database? Answer is yes. Can anybody delete something from this database? Answer again is yes. So now comes the question, what is stopping somebody from deleting my entire hard disk? So if they delete all the hard disk, all the contents in the hard disk, then all the client data is erased. So now the question is, how do I protect myself from this data? How do I protect myself from this risk? Okay. So now let us go to the answer to understand database control. How do I protect myself? Okay, the answer is here. The first one is, I may say that let me not keep my data in my Windows computer. I am going to keep it in a cloud. Okay, so I will keep it in the cloud. I'll use certain softwares. For example, I may use Google Drive, or I may use, let's say, uh, there is a tool something called as Work Drive. So if I'm using Work Drive, what I'm going to do? So all my data, I am going to upload it to this server. Okay, so now it is not there in my Windows computer. It is there in one server. Now the question is, how do I access it? I will say who can get to access. So I will say, okay, in my organization, let us say there are 5 employees. I will give them login ID and password. So using only that login ID and password, they should be able to access it. Okay. So any person who does not have that access control cannot log in. So first thing is, will it at least protect my data? Answer is yes. Only the authorized people can log in. Now you may say that, sir, what if authorized people only go and delete it? Well, so there is one, the clause F, if you see, there is something called as file handling control. So even if they wantingly they deleted it or unwantingly they deleted it, still the data will not be completely erased. It will go and sit in somewhere else, just like how recycle bin is there. So they will not be able to go and delete it from the recycle bin because I have defined their rules. Okay, again, little complicated, but try to picturize this. Next, second one is integrity control. Now, what is this integrity control? See, most of the times what happens, let us say you are filling one application. So they will say, enter your first name, enter your second name. Then they will say, enter your email, enter your mobile number. But let us say that, you are very lazy. So then you will simply put your first name, last name, and then you'll click on submit. The software will say, no, you have not completed all the data. You have not filled in all the columns. Okay. Fill mobile number, fill email ID. Only then will allow you to submit. So that means software itself is taking care of the quality of data that you are adding to the server. Okay. Next one is application software control. Now, how do I explain it? Let us read. Okay. When application software acts as an interface, so I'll explain it. Let us not read it. So, how does this function? Let's say I'm using one software. Okay. So I have to pass one purchase entry and I have to pass one sale entry. Okay, this is a new business that I'm starting. So if I'm passing some entry in my books, okay, so if I pass the first entry called as sale account, sorry, a cash account debited to sale, that is a sale entry that I've passed. Second entry I'm passing cash account debited to cash to purchases. When I'm sorry, purchases to cash. Yeah, I'll again repeat. Whenever I'm passing a sale entry, if I'm passing entry called as cash to sales, and whenever I'm purchasing, I'm passing an entry called as purchases to cash, book will not come and say you have done something wrong. But in real life, we know you can't sell and then purchase. You have to always purchase first, then sell it. So similarly, whenever, let us say I'm using one software to pass the entry, first I'm going to pass the entry of sale, then I'm going to pass the entry of purchases. Software should not say that, oh, this is impossible. But software should understand that process the purchase entry first, then process the sale entry. So that control, the application should take care of that aspect. There is not something called as concurrency control. That simply means, let's say there is one data which is accessed by multiple people at once. Okay, and everybody is trying to update it simultaneously. Then what should happen? So your software should take care of it. Okay. For example, imagine there is one tally that is there in the server, and four other client systems are trying to access the same thing, and they're all trying to pass the journal entry. So how this tally should react to them is defined in the concurrency control. Next, cryptographic control that talks about how do you encrypt the data so that even if somebody downloads the data, they will not be able to view the data because it has password protection. File handling controls, we already discussed that even if it gets by mistakenly deleted, then there is a backup available, you can restore it. Audit trail controls. Now, what is this audit trail control? Very interesting aspect. Imagine whenever you look at a journal entry, you get to see what is the journal entry. If the journal entry says cash account debited to sale, you will realize that, okay, cash has been received and sale has been effected. Let's say 1,000 rupees. But will you get to know who is the person who passed that entry? Will you get to know when was this entry passed? Will you get to know whether this entry has been actually changed or not? Normally, if you're just using your book, you will not get to know who even passed that entry. You will not even know when was that entry passed. It may have one date column, but that date column can be anything. So if you have an audit trail, the software itself will record all these details. Who is the person, when he has passed the entry, has he edited this or not? So if I am if I'm an owner of the organization, and then if I'm seeing some file, I want to know what and all changes has happened in this particular file. Who created this file? Who deleted this file? So all the data will be captured in the audit trail. Okay. So let us go to question number 12. The question number 12 is here. Now, this is I'd say even if you don't read it using your common sense, you can understand question number 12. The question is very simple. It says, the business with a vision to anticipate change generally grab the trend before their competitors does, and certainly opt for online mode for their business. Therefore, e-commerce is happening a trend in business nowadays. Okay. Briefly explain the forces underpinning the revolution of e-commerce. They're saying before 20 years, there was nothing called as e-commerce. Suddenly now everybody is starting an e-commerce entity. Everybody is graduating from the college, they're starting an e-commerce entity. Question is what is driving this revolution of e-commerce? You can only answer. I'll take you through the answer, but think before I go to scroll down, think why e-commerce is so much nowadays. What is driving it so crazy? So the answer is here. The first one is proliferation of mobile devices. That means everybody is using mobile device. Earlier days, having a computer in the house was a status symbol. Just like how we say today somebody has a Rolls Royce at their house or somebody has Mercedes Benz. Back then, computer was a big thing. But today, everybody has a mobile phone. So if everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has an access to the e-commerce entity. Okay, somebody can sit at home and can order. So they are saying 55% of the online traffic. So out of 100 devices that goes online, 55% are mobile phone. That means majority are mobile phones which are available with everybody. That means they are trying to buy using their mobile phone. So that is one reason why your e-commerce is thriving. Second reason is convergence of mobile telecommunication network and the internet. In olden days, I remember when I was in high school, maybe if you're back then in your primary or at that time, what would happen was you would always hold your phone and to check the network. So if you keep down, there is no network. If you hold little up, there would be that single bar. If you hold little up, there would be two bar. And I had, you know, in my place, I would see that people climbing the tree to get the proper network. But now it is not so. We have 5G or at least 4G or 5G where you can just order anything that you want. So it is very simple to order. So there is lot of network, there is lot of internet, and internet is cheap. Back then you would get for the whole of the month just like 100 MB of data, but now on a daily basis you get 1-2 GBs of data. So this is also one of the reason for increase in e-commerce. Next one is social network. So any social network that you log in, whether it is Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, or any other things, you are there's a lot of advertisements. So those advertisements will convince you to buy it. Or there are what we call social media influencers. They say, I have used this, I have become like this, I have used that, I have become like that. Order this and you can change your life too. And people normally tend to follow them. Okay. So social network is also one of the reason. Next one is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence simply means earlier days, you had to stay in line for a very long period of time to get in touch with the customer care executive. But now, with the help of AI, you don't even have to talk to a person. The software itself will solve your queries. For example, you ordered something in your Zomato, but the item is not proper. Let us say you ordered for 2 items, they delivered only one item. You want the refund for one item. You just open Zomato and you just raise your ticket, and automatically refund will be processed. Okay, so there is AI which is doing this. And as a user, I'm also happy because within fraction of seconds, I can get refund of it. Next, predictive analysis. That means you type something in Google. Let us say that you type in Google something, some clothing related aspect. So then Google will flood you with clothing advertisement. Let us say that you wanted to buy one book. You just type which is the best book for this subject. Then Google will understand that okay, you want to buy the book. It will flood you with advertisement, and those advertisements will drive you to purchase the product. And then support of IT governing laws. That means our Indian laws are helping people to, what do I say, to feel safe. Okay. For example, earlier days, there was no law around it. Now, the law made it the phone pay very easy, the Google Pay very easy, and how you pay using your debit card, credit card, everything is legalized and it is constantly monitored. Okay, so that's it. The next question, a lot of students told that next question is something that they would require the help. So that is one question that I'm going to take little more time to explain. Okay. So that question is about 13, question number 13. It talks about Miss Swati has been directed by her reporting officer to prepare a short report on blockchain technology and several risks associated with it. Elaborate in brief the factors that would form part of the report. So it is about blockchain. So imagine that some senior who does not understand what blockchain is has asked Swati, saying that Swati, explain me what blockchain is and what are the risk. Can we go for a blockchain? Okay. Now, before I answer you that question, I want to tell you what blockchain basically is. See, whenever I am doing any transaction with you, only you and I know about this transaction. Will that transaction be recorded? Answer is yes. But where it will be recorded? It will be recorded in your books and in my books. So if I'm making sale to you, it will be recorded as sale in my book. It will be recorded as purchases in your books. Correct. But now blockchain as a technology, it will say we should not record only in 2 books, but we should record it in a notice board so that everybody can get to see it. You may ask, sir, why notice board? Why should somebody else see my transaction? I'll give one very simple example. Let us say government budget. So every time a government comes with a budget, it will say this year we have kept 2,000 crore for education industry or educational sector. So you as a citizen want to know how this money is being spent. So what if there is a blockchain, as in there is a notice board, which says, okay, on so and so date, that money was transferred to this account. Let us say from central government was transferred to state government. From that state government, the money was transferred to one particular, let us say, district. From that district, it was transferred to one particular school. From that, it was transferred to one particular student. So you get to see everything. So some businesses wants this transparency, and that is where we are talking about blockchain. Okay. Well, I also want to show you how this blockchain looks like. Okay, so that you can picturize better, or else this point will not make any sense to you. So I'm going to share my screen. 1 second, give me a minute. So if you can see my browser, I've put something called as blockchain. In fact, even if you put blockchain explorer, it has to work. But my firewall is not allowing that website to open. So I'm opening another alternative website, something called as blockchain. Okay. So now if you come here, so one fancy website will open, it will show, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and other things. So if I click on Bitcoin, that is one of the cryptocurrencies. Now, this is a notice board. What exactly we are looking at is a notice board. So this is all the transactions that are happening now. Okay, if you look here, this is the uh, some transaction that has happened very recently. If you look at the date, it is March 25th, 2022. That is today's date, and this is the current time. You will say, sir, it is not 2:23, but it is not Indian time. This is UTC, which is exactly at approximately 7:55. So if you open that thing, so if I say notice board, I have to show you the transactions also, right? So yes, so these are all the transactions. So when I say notice board, it is not just one person's transaction will be put, everybody's transaction will be put here. Okay. So if you see here, this is one transaction, this is another transaction, so on. There are hundreds of transactions. You can open any transaction to check that transaction. Okay, so I'll open this transaction, and it says, okay, there is one person who is sending the money, and then there are two parties who are receiving the money. Okay, so this is what blockchain actually is, or how it looks like. So whenever you see this, you don't get to know who is sending it, you don't get to know who is receiving it, but you get to know that somebody is sending money to somebody else. Okay, so this is what blockchain is. Now, well, enough of this for our subject discussion. So with this, you can picturize. I'll take you back to the screen of our material. Give me a second. So here they are saying that blockchain is the answer. Okay, here it is. So look at this. This is you are supposed to reproduce in your examination. They're saying blockchain sometimes referred to as distributed ledger technology. Okay. So distributed ledger technology simply means that it is a ledger, correct? Ledger means it is a place where you record the transaction. So it is a ledger technology which is distributed. That means I showed you a website, right? There was data in it. Where it is stored? Is it stored in one central server at one central place? Answer is no. It is stored in distributed. That means it is stored in multiple devices. The copy of the same is stored everywhere. So it is, imagine a notice board which has multiple copies everywhere. So it is not just one board. If you have one board, if you destroy it, the data is gone. So it is not one notice board. There are hundreds of notice boards. That is a point number one. It is a shared. That means it is not just with one person, it is with everybody. Next one is it is peer-to-peer. That means whenever you do a banking transaction, it is the bank who updates that transaction. You may enter all your credentials, you may enter the OTP, and you may pay it. But it is the bank who is actually responsible for entering the data in the ledger. But here, it is not that way. It is not some centralized person. There is no centralized person at all. It is peer-to-peer. So if I'm sending money to you, it is only two of us who are entering into this transaction, and that gets recorded in the server. Okay, then it is decentralized. Again, they are saying distributed means there are multiple copies of the same. Decentralized means there is no one central database. Okay, it is decentralized. Next, open ledger of transaction system with no trusted third party. And again, in one sentences, they have used so many complicated words, but it is one of the most beautiful definition if you understand what they mean. So it's say there is no trusted third party. Now, who is a trusted third party? Whenever I'm doing a banking transaction, bank is a trusted third party. I know that whenever I'm paying 10,000 rupees, bank is actually going to deduct 10,000 rupees. It is not going to deduct 15,000 rupees. So there is a trusted third party. But when I'm using blockchain technology, there is no trusted third party. It is always peer-to-peer. Then comes the question, sir, only if there are two persons, there are no banks, and it sounds good, but at the same time, there is certain risk that is involved. Okay, so what are the risks that are involved? But before that, let us complete a couple of other sentences. It says the ledger database has every entry as permanent. I showed you one entry, right? It is permanent. You can't delete it. No matter what you do, you can't delete it. It is permanent. And it is append only database. That means you can add only. You can't remove anything from that. It is append only. You can keep adding things, but you cannot remove it, which cannot be altered at all. All transactions are fully irreversible, so you can't reverse it. So normally what happens? Let us say by mistake, if I made payment to somebody, I may request the bank saying that, can you just reverse the payment? Okay. But in or let us say somebody stole your debit card data and they made one transaction, you can file a police complaint and reverse that transaction. But in blockchain, that does not happen. So even if somebody steals your, password and sends the money, it is gone. You can't reverse it. Okay. Even if you file a police complaint, even if court gives the order, you can't reverse it. Okay. Next. So that is enough. And then they say it is not controlled by any bank, corporation, or government. A blockchain is nothing but a chain of blocks. That is what the name comes from. So then they're talking about the risk. Let us talk about the risk aspect. Now, one risk aspect would be somebody may say, I don't want my data to be shown in the notice board at all. I want my transaction to be private. I don't want anybody to know what is the amount of money that I own. But if I come to blockchain, everybody will get to know that. So some people may not be very comfortable with this. Okay, so some people will be like, I want people to know what amount of money I have. So everybody have a very different risk appetite. Okay, so it may not fit into everybody's risk appetite. Next, there may be questions about who is responsible for managing the risk. That is, everything is done by a software. So if we know that software is created by humans, so if there is some small glitches in the software, who is responsible? I lose, let's say, 10 lakh rupees. Against whom I file a police complaint? Okay, so that is a question. But in banking, I know I can file at least a complaint against the bank. So who is managing the risk? I don't know. Next point is the whole blockchain is depending on a technology. Okay, but if that how the technology happens, there is something called as consensus mechanism, which basically talks about how one entry gets passed there, whether all entries get passed. For example, let us say that I don't have money only in my account. I sent 5,000 rupees. Will it be recorded in that notice board? No. So every entry that you make has to be accepted by a group of people. Okay, that is something called as consensus mechanism. I'll not go in depth. Let us not get confused here. But let us say that somehow that consensus mechanism is compromised and wrong data are entered here. Then who is going to take the responsibility? If technology is tampered with, then all the data in this blockchain may not be accurate. Okay. Next point is, this is also one of the important questions. See, whenever a software, again, this is a software, and just like any other software, even this software requires update. But as it is peer-to-peer, the question is who is updating it? For example, if you're using WhatsApp, back then WhatsApp was slightly different from what it is today. Now, how did that update happen? Company decided to update it. You had no choice. They decided, they updated it. Correct? Now the question is, whenever you are not having a centralized authority, how are you going to update the software? Who is going to decide? How are they going to decide? What happens? There is a disagreement. So these are all the risk factors. Okay. Next, last issue is blockchain involves humongous data getting updated frequently. That means everybody's transaction is coming there. Okay. So if everybody's transaction is getting added, recorded in the blockchain network, question is monitoring it becomes difficult. Okay. So monitoring is also kind of challenging. So these are the risks that is associated with blockchain. Now I know this is a fairly new technology that is there, and you may not have an in-depth understanding. Even institute is aware of that. So just read this point. Try to memorize as much as keywords possible and reproduce in your examination. Okay. If you get time, maybe after examination, go to that website called as Blockchain Explorer or Blockchain Explorer. You will get to see how blockchain actually looks like. So there is one question somebody asked, sir, even if you transact a transaction, will it be displayed same like that? Answer is yes. All the transaction will come and check there. It is a notice board. Okay. Fine. It is already 8 o'clock. So I'll be quickly going through the last two practical questions. Okay, so that is as far as your CBS is concerned. So in core banking system, information security has become a critical to mitigate the risk associated with information technology. Elaborate the sub-processes that comprise information security in this case. So I'm not going to explain much about this. Again, the reason is being we are running out of time. So again, it requires 20 minutes explanation. Maybe in one of our next videos, I'll be taking up this question. But let us go to the question number 15. Okay. Question number 15 is BNC Financials is a well-renowned mortgage broker company that is engaged in providing mortgage loans to the potential businessmen for expansion establishment of their businesses. Write down various risks and their associated controls around mortgage process. So the question is very simple. The question they're asking is, what are the various risks and controls associated with mortgage process? Now, what is mortgage? Let us say that you want to mortgage your house and take the loan. Okay. So they're asking if somebody wants to mortgage their house and take the loan, what is the risk that is associated with it? Okay. So now, what are the controls? Let us directly jump into the answer. One second. Open the Here it is. Now, the first risk is, imagine I'm using a software. Okay. Let us say the person who is taking the loan is Arun. But what if instead of entering the name of Arun, I entered the name of Abhishek? So it is an incorrect customer data that I will enter. Arun is borrowing the loan, but I am entering the data of Abhishek. So when so in the software says something else, actually it is something else. So what is the risk? Incorrect customer and loan details are captured, which will affect the overall downstream process. Okay. So let us say you want to borrow a mortgage loan, but I have entered it as you want to borrow a vehicle loan. So then all the procedures are going to be affected by this. So what is the control? Control is one person should enter, but another person should review it. So that is the control they're talking about. There is a secondary review performed by an independent team member who will verify loan details captured in the core banking system with the offer letter. Also, let us say that in the offer letter, they are saying the interest rate is going to be 10%, but the person who is entering it in the software has entered it as 12%. That means software is going to calculate 12% only. So there has to be a second person who checks what is there in the letter, and then he has to check what is entered in the system. That is a control. The second risk is the loan is sanctioned for 10 lakh rupees, but by mistake, 20 lakh rupees has been disbursed. That is incorrect loan amount is disbursed. So how can you prevent this? What is the control? Again, you need to have a secondary review team. They check what is there in the sanction letter and what is actually being sanctioned. Next, interest amount is incorrectly calculated and charged. Let us say that the software you enter 10%, but instead of automatically calculating it, there is a person who is manually calculating the interest. Whenever you're talking about manual calculation, there might be certain small errors. So what is the control? Control is interest amount is auto calculated by the software itself. Okay. So then software will do its job perfectly. So that is the control. The last point is unauthorized changes made to loan master data or customer data. That means, imagine the Arun has borrowed loan of rupees 10 lakh rupees and with the interest rate of 10%. So all these data are captured in the system. But Arun's close friend is a bank employee. So he will say, Arun, don't worry, I will try to reduce something. So he will open the software and he will say 10 lakh, he will remove 1 0 and press save. So now the question is, should the loan amount be saved as 1 lakh or should it be 10 lakh only? Should be 10 lakh. So your friends, relatives, known people, or even by mistake, employees should not be able to change those data. So unauthorized changes should not be possible. So how do you do this? System enforced segregation of duties exist. That means there is a maker, then there is a checker. So only one person will not be able to pass anything. So even if one friend wants to change something, he will not be independently able to change it. Another manager level approval is required. Okay, so this is about risk and controls as far as mortgage loan is concerned. Now there is that MCQ, which is also fairly easier one, but there is one mistake according to me in your RTP. I want to only focus on that and then I'll take up questions and then we can finish it off. So here, okay, so this is the fifth MCQ. So I'll not read the whole question, but I'll explain you what this question is. It says that whenever a user is using a credit card, okay, let us say that you have a credit card. It is not that with that credit card you can buy items worth rupees 1 crore also. There is a credit limit. The bank will say you can purchase item worth rupees 50,000. So that is a credit limit that is set to you. Let us say that you are using that credit card to buy a computer which is costing 80,000 rupees. Okay. So now I am an e-commerce website. So whenever you are using that credit card to place the order, all the number you have entered is correct, OTP you have entered is correct. But should I accept that order? So answer is no. But how would I know that your credit limit is 50,000 and it is more than your credit limit? So your credit card system only checks it. So look at the question. In purview of the above case scenario, a control is well implemented in the payment gateway of so and so company that checks for the authorized limit of the credit card. So what is the amount set? If it is 50,000, only payment within 50,000 should be allowed. Okay. Of any customer when she places any order. Identify the control. Now, what type of control this is? Whether it is a preventive control, whether it is a detective control, whether it is a corrective control. Okay. So in the material, they have answered it as it is a detective control. In fact, it is not a detective control, it is a preventive control. Why it is a preventive control? Because imagine your credit limit is 50,000 rupees and you are trying to place the order for 80,000 rupees of item. So the system prevents you from placing the order. It is not a detective control, but it is a preventive control. Other than that, all the answers are correct. You can go through those MCQs and you can find out the answers. So if there is any questions that you can ask here, or you can also ask in YouTube. Give me a minute, I'll be just checking the YouTube questions. Okay, nice. There are no questions. I believe that you have understood certain things. Okay, there is one question. Somebody said, sir, I didn't understand what is XBRL. Can you please explain once again? Okay, let's do this quickly. But see, what is XBRL? Now imagine you are an investor who is there in Australia and you want to invest in one of the Indian companies. But now before investing, don't you want to see whether this company is performing good or not? You want to see. How will you see? So you will get to know only when you look at the financial statements. Now again, you are in Australia, you want to invest in Indian company. Okay, so you will ask for, give me your balance sheet. Now imagine the balance sheet is in Hindi. Can you understand Hindi if you're there in Australia and you don't know Hindi? No. So how do you convert it? How do you translate it? You may have to hire one translator who will charge again some amount of money. You don't want to go through all these things. That is where we have something called as XBRL. Okay, that is a language. Okay, so forget about language. Think that it is like one software tool where you are supposed to go and fill in the columns. For example, you have to select inventories and you are supposed to say 60,000 rupees. Let us say cash, 1 lakh rupees. Fixed assets, 5 lakh rupees. Okay, so everything you enter in that software. Then you will, somebody from India will send it to you who is there in Australia. So though it is in Hindi, with a click of a button, you can translate it to English, or let us say some other language that you are comfortable with. And it will translate it in such a way that it will say that this is exactly what the item that they're referring to. Okay. So maybe in China, they may call something, some asset by different name, but in India, you may call it as inventory. So the moment in China, they're selecting that terminology, whenever it is getting translated to Indian language, it will show it as inventory for you. Okay. So, but it is not a Google translator. Remember, so this is the interesting, good question. It is not a Google translator. It is a software specifically for financial data. It is not for, you don't know what one particular word means. Let's say you don't know what vada pav means in Chinese. It is not, you use XBRL to translate it to Chinese language. No, it is only to report your balance sheet in an XBRL so that you can send it to anybody and they can translate it and they can understand it. Only for the financial statements. Okay. So there is a standard way of reporting it. Okay, so maybe let us say that in India we have a format of DDMMYY. That is how we report our dates. But in some other countries they may have MMDDYY. So they should not get confused with our reporting standard. Okay, so there is one standard format where how you are supposed to even report all this transaction and it gets translated or it gets reported in the respective ways. That is what XBRL is. If you get a free time, there are a lot of XBRL softwares that are available. I suggest you go and download one and you see one. Only when you see it, you will be able to understand it. Okay? Fine. So I believe that there are no other questions, and I know that we have overshot time by 15 minutes. But again, that is for only learning purpose. So go home, read properly, do even previous RTPs, and go prepared for your examination. Okay? Thank you.